Welcome to Drinking Bros, presented by GhostBed.com. Welcome to Drinking Bros. My God, we've got a guest in studio today who's feisty. Typically, we have a little pre-show chat here at the old Drinking Bros. You just told me to go fuck myself.
I don't even think that was the implication.
It definitely was, Alex. And I don't know if I like your tone.
Well,
He might be a little sensitive.
So he went to Duke and you went to Ohio State. So I think
We beat Duke last
maybe
year in
he's
basketball.
but like academically, you beat them 0 times.
That's true.
Is the point I was making.
True.
So
Yeah. Duke's a hard school to get into, man.
Yeah, I'm not big into college prestige because often the smartest people allegedly do the most damage. So I don't talk much about where I went to school, actually.
But you're a smart guy, and you do a lot of damage. You wrote a new book,
Yes.
Fossil Future. Very controversial
Yes.
for a Duke guy.
Yeah, I didn't expect to write, let's say I didn't expect to write it when I was at Duke, and they don't admit you into Duke hoping that you'll write stuff like that.
Yeah, not at all. And you live in California now, right?
Yeah, I live in Laguna Beach.
And I'm sure they're fucking amped about this book.
Well, it's really interesting. I do get a lot of support, and even I lived in San Francisco for a couple years, and part of what I take pride in is I really try to explain these things in a way that is accessible and persuasive to people who expect to disagree. So I really have no problems anywhere I go with people.
Okay. Because I read your book, and in it you said that it took you about 3 years, something this complex that can be challenged. I would imagine a ton of research went into this. Who pays for that? Like, I think Penguin's your publisher.
Yeah.
Do they offer you help for something like this? Do you get a team of editors that kind of fact checks any of this stuff?
So, I mean, it was 3 years to work on this, and the way books work is, you get in advance on your royalties, so it depends on how much they expect them to sell. So just, roughly an author who sells as much as me might get like a low 6-figure advance. So that's definitely not enough to pay for all the time and stuff.
It's not, yeah.
No, not even close. And so the way that I do it is I have a business that pays for most of the things, and a lot of the business is speaking, and some of it is consulting. And then in the last 2 years, I actually started doing some projects where people sponsor it, although they have no editorial control. I used to not do that at all, but for various reasons I did it, mainly because when I did consulting, I would work behind the scenes for businesses, and I wouldn't make that big an impact. Like, let's say I'm advising a big oil company on their messaging. That could pay a lot of money, but it ultimately doesn't do as much as me telling the truth to the public. So basically, I used to not want to raise any money, but I decided, you know what, I'm going to raise money because this is going to make a difference. I'm just going to give everyone who gives the money zero control over what I say. So now a lot of what I do has some funding behind it, and that's allowed it to become much more successful.
That's awesome. I mean, we'll dive right in because the most important question about fossil fuel is obviously your shout out to your brother-in-law, Bob, at the end. He got a really big fucking, he got a lot of love at the end of this book.
My brother-in-law, Bob, what did I say about him?
You just said you loved him and you were proud of like him supporting you and everything. You really went on and on about Bob.
My brother-in-law is amazing. I don't think I said much about him, though.
You seem embarrassed that I brought him up.
No, I just find it hilarious because he's a very impressive person. So I theoretically could have gone in a lot of depth about him.
So we have a guy named Bob that works here, and he's not impressive.
Okay.
The opposite of that. I'm kidding. We love you, Bob. Is he back there?
Yeah, I'm here. Also, that made Sean laugh for some reason.
wait, you
Not
get
a high bar to clear, by the way.
Yeah.
you taking some heat made Sean laugh?
Yeah,
So he's got that's obviously a pent up rage against you. that
it
he's
is. Yeah,
exercising.
clearly.
I mean, he's behind you, so maybe secure your area.
Before we get into fossil fuels, let's talk about Bob, okay? What makes him so impressive?
So he founded a multi-billion dollar company, but he persisted at it for many, many years. So it wasn't one of these things where you just started up and it immediately is a unicorn and that kind of thing. He persisted for a long time. And one thing he encouraged me maybe 5-6 years ago when I was just starting to get traction, but I've been working on this for 9 years, this issue, and I still hadn't got nearly as much traction as I thought was deserved. And he just said, these things take time. And his was an example because when I met him, when he was getting to know my sister, his company was struggling mightily, but they were, building slowly just the infrastructure and the understanding to have this very, very successful company. So he's also, in my family, I'm always very grateful. So I grew up in a liberal environment. My family's Jewish, which tends to attract a lot of people who are kind of politically left. So I'm always super grateful when my sisters bring someone home who is not openly hostile to my views. And so my brother-in-law is very sympathetic. I think he was the first family member besides my dad to read my first book, The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels. So I got very lucky in terms of brothers-in-law.
And that was a bestseller, right?
That
Your
was a
first one?
bestseller.
Yeah. So let's get into fossil fuel here, because a lot of what you talk about in your book is what Dan has been saying on the show for years at this point. As far as, carbon emissions and our footprint and all that other stuff, and how electric vehicles aren't going to change the world the way we think they are. What is your case against it, and why?
Against which thing?
Of getting rid of fossil fuel altogether, because everybody wants to get off of oil and gas. That seems to be the big push. And right now, in particular, in our economy with the gas prices going up, it seems like the left has this big push of like, just go get an electric car.
Well, no, it's not. You said it in kind of an ephemeral way. They literally said that.
No, I know they did.
Like the press secretary literally said, "Hey, you fucking poor piece of shit, get out of my face with your emissions. Buy a car for $75,000, bitch."
That isn't available yet. It won't be available for 2 more years.
I don't know.
But as far as the future is concerned, what do you genuinely think it is for somebody who hasn't read your book yet, for fossil fuel and what it's really going to be like? Because Dan says it's going to be fucking 10, 15 years down the road.
Which is going to be 10 or 15 years.
Before electric cars are predominant.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And even in the electricity still comes from somewhere. But we'll get,
So maybe one way to think of it is we're told that our goal as a society and a world is to rapidly eliminate fossil fuel use. The dominant goal that if you look at institutions, including corporations, governments around the world, they say we need to be net zero or carbon neutral by 2050. So that essentially means eliminating all of our fossil fuel use in the next, 27 and a half years.
Right.
And part of, when you bring up EVs, part of the way this is pitched is, you're just gonna drive a little bit of a different car. And maybe it'll be a little more expensive. But this is a total ruse, to put it charitably. If we rapidly eliminated fossil fuels in the way that is being advocated, you would not be driving. Billions of people would be starving. The world would be the apocalypse. And this sounds weird because what we're told is the opposite. We're told that, if we continue using fossil fuels for the next 27 and a half years, then it's going to be the apocalypse, right? Because it's going to be so hot, and the storms are going to get so much worse, and the sea levels are going to get so high, we're just going to be overwhelmed, and nothing will work. We can talk about why that's all wrong. But it's actually the opposite. It's that if you rapidly eliminate fossil fuels, which provide 80% of the world's energy, and today are still growing, in a world that desperately needs more energy, 6 billion people in the world use an amount of energy that you and I would consider totally unacceptable. 3 billion of those people use less electricity than one of our refrigerators. A third of the world uses wood and animal dung for heating and cooking. So if you're talking about eliminating 80% of the world's energy that's growing in an energy-starved world where we have no evidence that there's any near-term replacement, that means what I call disempowering the whole world. So it means taking those of us who are wealthy and giving us far less of the energy that allows us to use machines to be productive and prosperous. And it means totally depriving billions of people of that opportunity. And the fact that it is apocalyptic is in evidence by the fact that we've tried to get about 1/20th of the way there through Europe's and America's policies. And what do we have? We have a global energy crisis and already starvation problems.
About 6% of the cars here coming off the factory floor every year are EV, but that doesn't include the other cars that already exist, right? So it's like 1/20th of our driving capability is now EV. And then the idea was, okay, we're on the way here. Let's go ahead and cut these fossil fuels off. And within 6 or 7 months, I think it was about 7 months is when the energy crisis started after that. Like, what the fuck are you thinking, dude?
Yeah.
Well, EVs are FFVs, right? So they're fossil fuel vehicles.
Yep.
This is actually the point that got me blocked on Twitter by Elon Musk, because I wrote this article in...
That's a fun fact. I didn't know that about you.
In Forbes, I think it was about 10 years ago, I wrote an article. It was complimentary. I said the Tesla Model S is a really good fossil fuel car. And the Tesla people didn't like that, even though I said it was a good car. But I just pointed out it's powered almost entirely by fossil fuels.
80%.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we need to recognize that everything in the society is powered by fossil fuels, including the alternatives, because all of the alternatives involve a lot of transportation to make them, and fossil fuels dominate transportation. And they involve a lot of what's called industrial process heat, so very high levels of heat for industry, which is also dominated by fossil fuels. So just the fact is we do not have any promising rapid replacements. I mean, nothing close. The closest we have is nuclear, but interestingly, the same movement that's anti-fossil fuels has virtually criminalized nuclear. So I do believe that this anti-fossil fuel movement is bringing about a world that's as bad as they claim climate change will bring about.
Now we're getting somewhere.
No.
Are you a climate change denier?
I'm a climate change believer who recognizes that it's nothing resembling an existential threat.
Yeah.
So Dennis Miller always says, what, every 100 years the Earth gets 1.5 degrees warmer, and he's like, what do we really give a shit if it's just 1.5 degrees?
Did he say that?
Yeah.
Good for him.
Yeah, and he says, what do we really give a shit about the climate then? If that's what the case is.
Well, that's a really interesting point, and I would say it's a great point because there's no reason to actually care that much if you're focused on human well-being or what I would call human flourishing. Mm-hmm. But yet we treat it as the apocalypse. So to take that number 1.5 degrees. So 1.5 degrees, this is the number that's considered this magic, like numerological number that once we hit it, everything gets terrible. And then 2 degrees is just unbelievable, right? But we're already at 1 degree. So 1.5 degrees refers not to from now, but from pre-industrial time. So we've already warmed a degree, and what's happened? We have the best world ever. We've never had a more abundant world, a more safe world, and in particular, we've never had a world that's safer from climate disaster. This is very well documented that the rate of death from climate-related disasters has gone down 98% in the last 100 years as we've had this warming. And so what that shows, among other things, is that our ability to master climate is much more important than any change in climate. So when you have the ability to master climate, you can make almost any climate safe. And if you don't have that ability, every climate is hazardous. And so from a human perspective, 1.5 degrees or 0.5 degrees or 1 degree, like it's nothing resembling a catastrophe. And so what this points to is there's something going on with the way people view it morally. They think it's just wrong for us to change it. So it's not that the 1.5 degrees will be so bad for us, but they think it's wrong that we caused it. And as a philosopher, this is really the key premise of the book, which is that we need to decide, are you looking at this issue from a pro-human perspective where you want things that are good for human life, or are you looking at it from the perspective that human impact is evil and should be eliminated at all costs? And I believe the way we're thinking about this issue believes that human impact is evil and should be eliminated at all costs. That's why we're willing to destroy the world to prevent 1.5 degrees warming.
Right. Which is absolutely hilarious.
Sort of.
But it's not rooted in any kind of actual reality, though. That's the issue. Like, you can have a debate around stuff like that philosophically if it's rooted in some sort of reality, but that's absolute nonsense.
Exactly, which is why I find it hilarious. And
the only reason people believe it is because renewable energy companies have been spending billions of dollars in D.C. to have politicians say it for them. That's it. Like, this is the same. This is kind of like the inverse of the corn syrup bullshit in the 1950s, right? Before the 1950s, corn syrup was used to make pigs fatter before slaughter. That was what is the only use for it, right? And all of a sudden, someone's like, "Hey, we can put this in food," and then the FDA, for example, is like, "Oh, you should start using FDA-approved corn syrup in your products."
Yeah.
Right? It's fucking bullshit. People think because the government says it, or because the Obama administration wastes money on Solyndra and all these stupid companies, that somehow validates the process. Like, no, man, they're just idiots wasting money on nonsense.
Yeah, and you're in Texas for what, a jiu-jitsu tournament, I believe?
I'm watching a jiu-jitsu tournament. I should say I'm not. I've done jiu-jitsu for 19 years, but I'm not good enough for people to pay money to watch me.
Say you're competing. Nobody's going to check. Nobody's going to fact check that. Who gives a shit?
Everything of mine gets fact checked.
Oh, does it? Well, since we're in Texas, it was about 109 yesterday, right? As far as climate change is concerned, everybody's like, "Oh my God, you see, it's climate change. It's 109." And then on the old television, you got the weatherman saying it hasn't been this hot since 1825. Mm-hmm. Well, clearly it was that hot 200 years ago, but 200 years ago, nobody was screaming about, climate change. Oh, it must be the climate change in 1825. So how big of a deal is it?
Well, in a sense, they were screaming, not about we caused it, although people did believe that back then too, that kind of thing. but it was a crisis because you had no way to deal with it. Right. So right now, what's funny to me is everyone is afraid of global warming, and yet voluntary global warming is massively higher than the actual global warming. I mean, think about all the people who've moved from California to Austin. So I live in Laguna Beach, which is a really, really nice place this type of year.
Gorgeous.
And then I come to Austin, and comparatively it's hellish, and yet many of my friends from Orange County have moved here. So they've chosen just many, 10 degrees plus Celsius of
Way
warming.
more than that, homeboy.
Well, Celsius.
Celsius, okay.
So, because usually the numbers, they're international, so they're Celsius. Okay, so they're choosing so much warmer. And why are they choosing it? Because it's an overall better experience, and because the ability to master climate is so significant. You can have these cooled buildings, you can have transportation. It's an amazing world we live in, and yet we're afraid of a changing climate. And I don't think it's just renewable energy industry, though they do promote a lot of bad thinking. I think it's really, we have this deep premise that our educational system has promoted that it's wrong for us to impact the world. That's why this idea of green is so big. Just the idea we shouldn't be impacting Earth. And my basic premise is impacting Earth is really good as long as we do it intelligently. And that our impact generally makes the world a more abundant place and a more safe place. And we should aspire to impact the world more, including because it allows you to enjoy nature more. If you don't impact the world a lot, you sure as hell are not enjoying nature. And that's the position of 5 billion plus people. They're not going on vacations to enjoy nature. They're living in abject poverty.
Right.
And they have very little impact. I was just in Egypt. Most of those people have very little impact compared to us. Or look at what's happening right now in Sri Lanka. I mean, it's been publicized, including by Tucker Carlson, had a really good segment. Sri Lanka has a quote, ESG score of 98 out of 100. It's like, what is ESG? Environment means don't impact. So it's like saying, oh, you're as close to the ideal as possible. The best response on Twitter, by the way, was somebody said, Thanos had an ESG score of only 50. That's the only one to kill half the people.
Yeah, they're having fun in Sri Lanka right now. Decided to have their own J6 over there. Take it back.
It's not just Sri Lanka.
Sad.
It's going on in Ireland. It's going on in Wales. It's going on obviously in Holland. They're actually in Germany has now joined that protest. German farmers as well. So there's a lot of shit going on.
A lot of shit going on, and then they got Boris Johnson out of there over in England. It's rare.
He looks like a cartoon character to me.
Yeah.
Like he looks like a British politician cartoon character you would have seen in like the 1960s or something. I can't take that guy seriously.
No. Well, he's gone, so it doesn't really matter. Anyways.
He'll be back.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they usually are. They usually are.
But yeah, to the point you're making, it's like it is a planning error to assume the conditions are always going to be the same, right? So the premise that these people are operating from is that this is the amount of impact we're going to have, and that's bad, but only because they're judging our ability to handle the impact by the initial state and not the end state. That doesn't make any sense to do that, right? That's like saying, I'm going to buy a bunch of heavy shit to lift when I'm older. Like I'm going to invest in a weight set or something when I'm 19 and be like, well, I can't lift those weights. I'm 6 years old. Well, when you're 19, you'll have muscles, right? I mean, it's just a completely asinine way to think about that situation.
Yeah, and I talk about this a lot in Chapter 2. So Chapter 2 is called Catastrophizing Side Effects, and it goes into the multiple predictions that modern environmental thought leaders have made over and over and over, and how they haven't just been wrong. I needed to invent a term for how wrong they are, which is 180 degrees wrong, because they predicted something would get much worse, and it got much better.
Like so the 2000, and by 2000, this was published, I think, in 1982 or 83.
In the 70s.
Was it in the 70s? It was like by 2000, Florida, gone.
Yeah.
Everything's gone by 2000. Like,
well, in England, the kind of the
happened.
leading public environmental thinker the last 50 plus years, this guy Paul Ehrlich out of Stanford. And you cannot be more wrong than this guy has been. I mean, he had the population bomb in the late 1960s saying we're going to run out of food. We had unprecedented food. Then we're going to run out of all resources, unprecedented resources. We're going to have dire pollution. Pollution gets better across the world. Environmental quality gets higher, more clean water than ever. Catastrophic global cooling, catastrophic global warming. We have fewer climate deaths than ever. So these guys, they always, always, always get it wrong. And part of it is what you're pointing to, which is, at minimum, people don't think of adaptation. But I put it as mastery, because it's not just we adapt to changing circumstances and problems that we create, although we do. We take all the problems of nature and master them. So climate was a huge problem, like we talked about 1820. Climate is naturally a catastrophe. Life is naturally an apocalypse by our standards. I was talking with one of my favorite people, Palmer Luckey, the Oculus creator. We had an event for the launch of Fossil Future, and I was doing this event with Peter Thiel, and Palmer and I had a conversation we recorded after, and he and I really agreed on this. Like, if we woke up in Sri Lanka, we would consider it the apocalypse. And I try to think about that all the time. Like 5 billion people live in the apocalypse by my standards. And they're not going to get into a good world with fossil fuels, and we're not going to stay in a good world without fossil fuels.
Yeah, like India, I think it's 70% of households in India. Now there's cities and then there's the hinterland, and a lot of this happens, a lot of it is concentrated in hinterland, but 70% still use wood and shit. They burn it for energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's better. I mean, you need energy in part because the world is too cold. People don't understand this. Like, most people are too cold. Even in India, you have way more cold-related deaths than heat-related deaths. So nature is not a perfect place. Like the planet is not perfect. The planet is imperfect. We have to improve it.
Sure.
Fossil fuels make it much better overall. They do have some negatives, but the positives are just so much greater. And that's I think inarguable once you really start thinking of the world. If you think of all the factors, pro and con, from a pro-human perspective, I think it's obvious fossil fuels are awesome.
For sure. I mean, whether or not they're awesome 50 years from now is another question, right? Like if we're able to advance and get off of that in some way, that's great.
Yeah, I mean, you always want progress.
Yeah,
right?
but you know, it's like right now we're just like letting plates hit the ground.
Yes, that's a good analogy.
You know what I mean? It's very bizarre. I honestly haven't figured out yet because it's been going on for several years now, and I can't figure out if it's incompetence or if this is some kind of, weird reset kind of bullshit going on. Usually I just lean incompetence.
I think they don't care about plates.
And plates being human beings in this analogy. Yeah, you're probably right about that. I mean, so think about the mindset of being comfortable and having what you need and then lecturing other people for doing the stuff that your ancestors had to do on the come up. Like, that's extremely fucked up.
Yeah. What does a guy like you think about the Paris Agreement?
I think it's evil.
And when Trump pulled out of it...
that was one of my favorite things that he did.
I figured it was. Why is that in place, and why are so many people on board with it?
So, the Paris Agreement is a global commitment to rapidly eliminate fossil fuels with this target that we mentioned of prevent it from warming either another half degree, because that gets us to 1.5, or another full degree. And so it's saying we should get rid of fossil fuels in the name of preventing the Earth from warming 1 degree. Now, it should be pretty obvious. There is no way to predict with that degree of precision, what degree of emissions is going to lead to what degree of warming. Emissions do cause warming, but it's not understood that precisely. But this is, as I said, this is disempowering the world. So they're committing to depriving the world of all the energy that we know works. And to your plates analogy, they have no replacement plates. Yeah. So it's one thing to say, I've got these, imagine if the solar and wind movement said this, we've got these amazing technologies and just leave us free and we'll come up with a better system. That's what most competitors do. Like if you're going to replace the iPhone, you say, I have a better phone. Right. You don't say, we're going to ban all the iPhones and then I promise to replace it with my renewable phone made of wood. Like nobody would accept that.
Right.
But we say, oh yeah, let's replace all the fossil fuels with forms of energy that have not been proven whatsoever to power a civilization. And that's, as I said before, what Europe has done is just a tiny, tiny fraction of what the Paris Accords calls for. Europe is in violation. We're actually ahead of them, mostly because we use a lot of natural gas. But long-term, we're not going to head toward them at all. But Europe is failing to meet their targets, and yet they are precipitating a global energy crisis. This is how insane this is. And these people have not learned yet. They just had the World Economic Forum, that thing in Davos.
Yeah.
And I just was looking at the website, and I thought, well, maybe there's sub-admission of guilt, right? Because they've told the world to get off fossil fuels, and that's caused this crisis, and people are starving, and grids aren't working. But no. They had no admission, and in fact, all the same people flew their private jets out there, and they said all the same things. And so I think it's really important for these people to be implicated in causing the current crisis, and for those of us who have been predicting this and calling for the opposite to be vindicated. And so I'm not at all shy about saying, there's footage of me telling the Senate 6 years ago, you're causing an energy crisis. And Barbara Boxer's like, I'm not listening to you, you're a philosopher. Right. I'm like, you need to listen to me because I'm going to help you think more clearly. And she said, I don't need your help, but she did need my help.
Yeah, she needs a lot of help, though. Let's face
Well,
it.
she's
she's retired
super
now.
fucking old. Is she?
yeah,
Barbara
she's,
Boxer, yeah,
she was my senator at the time, but yeah,
She's got to be, what, 80s? Has to be somewhere.
yeah, she was pretty good in Curb Your Enthusiasm, but that's about it.
But as far as the Paris Accords go, what I've always said on this show is if you can't get China and India to participate anyways, and they each have more than 1 billion plus people population-wise, what the fuck are we even doing then?
So that's kind of I think the primary thing I said, it's evil in that if you did it, it would ruin billions of lives. But then there's this other layer where it's obviously not going to be implemented by billions of people, namely China and India, nor should they. I mean, good for them for not doing it. But it puts us at an incredible strategic disadvantage because we're unilaterally what I call disempowering. So we're making ourselves less powerful while China is openly trying to become the world's superpower by 2049. And they're doing it with an 84% coal electricity grid that's making unreliable solar panels and wind turbines that we're using and calling them green, and by the way, involving slave labor and very low environmental standards. So strategically, the main thing is, again, if it were implemented, it would ruin everyone's life. But the second thing is, in practice, it's going to be particularly ruinous to the free world, and particularly to America, because we're much more likely to follow it and ruin ourselves, while other nations don't.
Why 2049?
I don't know. I didn't make up that number.
2050 is the year that
Did they?
That the Paris Accord. It's the year that everybody kind of refers to as when you should be carbon neutral.
Oh no, but China's. I don't know why they're 20. It might be some Mao thing that they picked 2049.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, is it part of the Chinese New Year or something like that?
I don't know.
Is that the year of the rat?
I don't know.
How into it are you?
How into?
What's your favorite dish on a Chinese menu?
I'm gluten free, so I have a lot of problems with Chinese food.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I bet the toilet looks like a Basquiat painting afterwards. We've got a Hard AF seltzer that's gluten free if you're a seltzer guy. Before you go out tonight, it's 8%. I mean, I'd watch yourself, but
Yeah, especially with my tolerance.
yeah, is it 0?
No, I always drink 2. That's it.
Okay.
That's my tolerance. That's what I enjoy. But I'm not.
What do you drink?
I imagine, given the title of this show, I'm not as impressive a drinker as you guys.
No, but 2 is it's super. I mean, right there, boom. 2.
Yeah, I just never got into the habit of it. But yeah, I like Moscow mules these days.
No shit.
I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
Love Moscow.
Pro Russia. I don't. We had to rename it.
No, we named-
It's a Freedom Mule now.
Yeah, Freedom Mule, and then,
Everything's a freedom.
yeah, and then Freedom Milk, I believe, was the White
Freedom.
Russian.
It is. Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, we have to change all of it. You know that, right?
Because of George W. Bush and how
it's a
inspiring of a fucking thinker he was.
Too bad vodka is so delightful.
It is delicious.
It is. It is.
I've got a question about, there's a lot, you address a lot of this stuff on your website, in the speeches you give, in the consulting you do for, O&G companies and shit like that. But I'm curious, just for the audience, there's some really widely held misconceptions because of the marketing and messaging that, people have done over the last, 30 or 40 years on this. But there's some really widely held beliefs that are completely not true. Can you, what are some of those that you think are the most egregious? Because we could go down a fucking list. There's actually a website that has the dumbest. It's called the 50 years of
Failed climate
predictions.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are sort of all one idea, right? That we're going to have an imminent climate catastrophe.
Yeah.
So I'll give the high level, but
Okay.
one reason why, I don't know what this book is, 420 pages or something. One reason it's that long is I believe there are literally hundreds of myths that need to be refuted. Sort of at the high level, I think there are 3 basic myths. So one is that energy is not very important. I think that's really important one. That's a subtle myth, but if you notice, for example, I talk about 3 billion people using less electricity than one of our refrigerators. Notice how rarely that gets talked about.
Yeah.
This reveals how little we care about energy, yet comparatively, how often do we talk about the fate of a polar bear who has to move from one piece of ice to another?
Especially if he's not fucking, right?
Exactly.
Remember those pandas that were in the zoo and they wouldn't fuck, and everyone was like, dude, pandas are done.
Yeah.
Or was it pandas?
Pandas are very
Ling
fragile species.
Ling Ling was one of them.
And
Pandas
indecent.
never fuck.
Yeah,
have to
and that's
force 'em.
disappointing.
We got to shoot them up with some of that.
TRT.
Yeah.
Get them on the TRT.
You just
watch
see
'em
like
bang.
you just see pandas just fucking lifting weights.
Jacked as
Yeah.
shit pandas.
Wearing like an American flag bandana all of a
Fuck yeah,
sudden.
dude.
You're like, damn, dude.
Smoking heaters.
We did this right. It's a kid.
China would be so upset. They do
Oh,
not.
they would not
They don't
like
like
this.
any pretense that we can do something better with pandas.
Really?
They think that they own all the pandas.
Well, Go to Panda Express.
I think we need to get.
I'm sure they'd be impressed by that.
Well, they use real panda in the meat.
Yeah,
you know
it's,
that,
it's
right?
mostly real panda. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we should get a panda and send it to Kid Rock's house. Just let it live on this property
On
there.
4th of July.
Yeah.
Just send the panda out for 4th of July weekend.
It's just him and the panda
Bottle
doing
rockets.
shooters.
Yeah. Shots, cocaine, titties. Pandas just going nuts all over the property.
He's got the General Lee there, too. You can let the panda drive it.
Fuck yeah, dude. Let him take it for a spin.
Well, they're actually an interesting example of also just how amazing it is to be wealthy, that you can care about these animals just because they're cute. Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
that's a real luxury to have.
But isn't that the point of being rich? Is just so you can have like cute and hot things around?
It's a point
Yeah.
of being rich.
It's the point of being rich.
For sure.
Maybe leveraging your wealth and technology to help other people should factor in a little bit.
That's probably 3 or 4 down that list. Having hot shit is one.
Well, don't you want a society? The best is a society, right, where everyone can have the hot stuff.
Do you really want that?
Yeah.
I think a guy like you likes to have power over the pores.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm curious how you deduce that.
That's not a very libertarian idea. I don't think.
No,
I think that was gonna fit.
but deep down, right? When
No,
you're sleeping
really?
at night, do you sit in your bed and you're like, man, this
Let me
book-
ask you a question. Do you manage people?
What do you mean?
Like, do you employ people?
Yeah, they're right here.
Somehow.
Okay.
They're right here, yeah.
Do you like lust to do more of that, or do you sometimes find it to be a little bit much?
No, so here's if I'm being totally honest, the secret dream is to have like win the lottery or sell the seltzer or something like that. I enjoy doing this every day.
Yeah.
What I hate is management. I hate the phone calls. I hate the lawyers. I hate the CPAs.
Yes.
I hate all of them.
You're talking about managing the business, though. He's talking about managing those assholes.
Well,
right
that's-
there.
that's a big-
I don't want to worry about it, and I don't want to. I don't want to think about it
So
at
having
all.
power over others is choosing to do that without getting this enjoyable thing. So I manage people, and look, I love working with people and stuff, but like controlling people, worrying about them, that is not fun.
It's not fun, right?
No,
No. So wouldn't you rather just be rich and then look down over your reading glasses at the pores and be like,
No,
well,
but the thing
I've
is-
already done my thing.
I mean, I am rich, right? So I mean,
Well, everybody in
Humble
America,
brag.
comparatively speaking.
well, I'm rich
Yeah.
compared to people in America, and I'm certainly rich compared to people in the world. I mean, I'm not rich compared to a lot of people, but it's like the enjoyment of that is actually you have to be less concerned with other people.
That's what I'm saying.
But it's not the pleasure of looking down at people.
There's no pleasure in it, but it's just being less concerned. Like if somebody trips over on the sidewalk and it's a homeless person, and you think to yourself, man, I'm super rich.
No, I think I can get my assistant to take care of that.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about, brother.
Yeah, see, that's- you can
their
help-
job.
you can help them.
Hey, Jimmy, go clean up the homeless guy over there who fell over. He looks real dirty. I don't want to get my fucking hands dirty on that guy. And that's the power in it, you know?
No, it's all those people who want power over other people and who claim to care about them, who like create these homeless catastrophes
Yes.
that don't have to happen.
Yes, so Dan and I don't want power over people. Like, we want everybody to govern themselves
Yeah.
and have a good time.
Exactly,
That's what
me
we
too.
believe in, but I still want to be richer than most, you know? That way, in case shit goes down and I have to buy somebody off, it's like, well, I got the cash for that, you know?
Well, there's
Well,
a
it's
good
actu-
formula for that. Like having ambition is good for society.
Yeah.
So long as you're inspired by the success of others and not intimidated by it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
And I'm not.
You have to do both of those things. Some people are going to be better than you, some worse.
Oh, yeah.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't always try to do better for yourself.
Oh, 100%. And we do every day.
I don't.
But I'm just, do you?
No, I don't do anything. Just kind of hang out, smoke weed.
You're a good citizen. You've got a show called Citizen, you know?
It's true, yeah.
Yeah, so.
So we're talking about the fallacy number one, which we've perfectly elaborated on right now.
Yeah.
No, which is energy.
Goddamn right we have.
Energy is not that important, right? So the,
Well, we take it for granted for sure.
no, but it's and so my argument is it's actually fundamental to the livability of the world.
100%.
So
There's no
that's,
question about that.
And then the other two are that fossil fuel can rapidly replace. Fossil fuels can be rapidly replaced by solar and wind. And then number three is that fossil fuels are causing climate catastrophe. And so within those, there are literally dozens or even more fallacies under
Sure.
each. So there's, things about ice caps and things about storms and things about floods.
And things about us running out of these fossil fuels,
Yeah, that's
which is
not
also...
as popular right now, right? Because people are worried that we have too many of them.
Yeah.
But it's always some form of the earth was perfect and we ruined it by impacting it. So sometimes it's we depleted its finite resources. Sometimes it's we polluted its pristine state. Sometimes it's we destabilized its perfect climate. But it's always viewing us as this evil force.
But it's our climate.
And Yeah.
We're the dominant species on this planet.
Yeah.
Fuck the whales.
Exactly,
man.
dude.
I don't give a fuck about whales.
Well,
If
actually,
I saw a whale roll up on a beach today,
I'd shoot him
punch
in the
right in the
face,
face.
yeah. I'd shoot him.
Yeah, he'd shoot him. I'd punch him.
I don't know if it's a crime or not.
Yeah, well, he's a better shot than I am, so I gotta swing away.
If
I gotta
if
fire a
I
haymaker.
jokingly affirmed this would be my enemy's clip of the month. No, I mean,
Alex Epstein punches whales in his free time.
endorses
He loves
it. Endorses
Well,
it.
you got to head up to the Northeast because those sharks keep attacking people.
I know.
In New York, man.
Climate change. That's
Yeah.
why
It's
all the
always-
sharks are there, dude.
It's really, I mean, I think it can only be understood as a religion because I really think of it as the commandment is thou shalt not impact nature, or specifically thou shalt not impact the climate. And then if we do it, then we get punished by the vengeful nature God. That's really, because it's really like everything bad climate-wise is our fault, and then everything good is nature.
Imagine the hubris of humanity to think that they can control. You know, a Mars-sized object slammed into the side of the Earth, and we're still here.
Yeah,
Right?
everything's
and
fine.
then 65 million years or so ago, a rock the size of Manhattan hit, like, what, 300 or 400 miles south of us right here?
Well,
Still here?
still here.
I don't like that. That argument I have mixed feelings about because we need to be open. Like you learn that CO2 is a greenhouse gas, so it's a warming gas, which means it basically temporarily slows the release of heat into the atmosphere. And so you need to look at it clinically and say, hey, how significant is this? What happens as it rises? I think when you look at it, you see it's a pretty slow effect. And one piece of evidence we have is we used to have CO2 levels 15 times higher, and the world did not boil at all.
yeah.
It was a more tropical place. And it had way higher temperatures, and it was still quite livable, and we're the most adaptable species ever. So there's no actual reason to be afraid, but from the starting point, you can't just... I've heard some people from a religious background say, oh, well, God would never let us ruin the earth. And like, you can't start that way.
I mean, we could nuke this place and fuck it up forever.
Right. So you just need to
Yeah.
be... It's not the... So sometimes people use... I guess you're not using it this way, but sometimes people use the hubris argument to say, oh, we're like, we can't do any damage. And
No,
I think we
that's-
can.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
We can. This is just not a particularly large, effective way of doing it.
Well, it's almost like some very basic truths are intentionally obfuscated anytime you have this conversation. One, it used to be pretty popular to say that we were running out of fossil fuels. Now that's very easily disproven, and that they have a new method now. It's not just about getting rid of fossil fuels. It's about replacing with what they refer to as renewables, which...
Unreliable is a better term.
whole other fucking conversation there. But yeah, now it's changed a little bit. I wonder about how the messaging has shifted over the years. You know what I mean? Like you can tell what people's priorities are sometimes by just about how they explain what they're trying to get you to do. Because they've been trying to get us to do the same general thing for a while now, but the messaging has changed over the years.
Well, it's gotten better. Like when I heard Greta Thunberg speak, I knew that things were going south.
Because you found her so persuasive.
Worst human ever. Worst human ever.
Oh, no.
But that's the messaging that's getting out to the world. Like it's her. And we're supposed to pay attention to a fucking 16-year-old with rich parents.
Well, the thing that's scariest about her is that it really shows that we're taught to believe that what she says is right, because nobody's concerned, right, that she's not a scientist or that she doesn't know anything, because it's treated as, oh, we all know that fossil fuels are ruining the world, and we all know that we can get rid of them with little or no negative consequence, and it's just some bizarre failure of everyone in the world to take the obvious action. And this is the narrative we're fed, right? That it's easy to get off fossil fuels, and then if we don't, the world is going to end.
Yeah.
And if you think it's costless, never mind what the climate issues are, if you think it's costless to get off fossil fuels, you are going to make epically disastrous decisions. And this is what we've done already, right? We've done, and one thing about running out is we are now running out, right? Because we're running out of freedom. We're not running out.
Because we're not making it. Or extracting.
And
it.
that's the scary thing is that we've been for 15 plus years depriving people systematically of the freedom to do this. And in America, we had this shale revolution that really bailed us out. Because I put in my first book, Moral Case for Fossil Fuels, imagine Obama had known about the shale revolution and fracking.
Yeah.
He would have tried to put a stop to
Probably,
it.
yeah.
But he didn't know about it, so he couldn't get ahead of it. And then it happened, and then he took credit for it. But this unleashed a huge amount of oil and gas that we really had no right to expect. But there were all these anti-oil and gas and coal forces around the world that were still operating. And so part of it is we should have become a lot wealthier without these other forces. But now what's happening is American oil and gas is being suppressed, everything is being suppressed, and yet demand is still going up. So we're restricting supply, demand goes up. You have rising prices in a crisis.
Yeah, it's dumb. It's usually when somebody's operating in good faith, they'll, like, if you're writing a research paper, you'll speak to the contradictions to your point at the end of it somewhere, right? And try to address some of those.
Contradictions or conflicts of interest?
No, I mean, like, not contradictions. What's the word I'm looking for? You red cell the thing and be like, people might say this.
Oh, okay.
And,
what are the best counter arguments or devil's advocate? Or that
and you would address some of that stuff. But like you said before, when if somebody makes a better product, they talk about how much better their product is. When they make a piece of shit, they just try to ban your product, right? But none of the very reasonable arguments make headlines. Like, we do sort of have natural CO2 scrubbers, right? Like plants and shit, right? I never hear anybody like you certainly I've heard speak about this and other people, Schellenberger as well, about how, like, during periods when the temperature rises, you start to see more trees and things like that.
Yeah, like now.
Yeah. Like, it's kind of in the same vein as that hubris argument, but nature kind of has a lot of this stuff figured out. So maybe figure out a way to work with it. You know what I mean? Because it's going to be unpredictable. But
yeah, I mean, I really think it comes down to this religious belief that it's just wrong that we impacted things. Because if you look at CO2 just in a clinical, pro-human way, what you realize, okay, this is a warming gas. And by the way, it warms more in colder regions of the world, which is generally where people want warming more. And then it's a fertilizing gas. And so whether you would sort of say, okay, well, we're not going to get rid of it for a while, even if we want to, because it comes with fossil fuels, and fossil fuels allow us all to live, right? So how do we actually deal with it? And you look, okay, well, there's going to be a lot of benefits to warming, and then there may be some harms too. And there are going to be a lot of benefits to greening, and there may be some harms of that. But you would, as you say, you'd work with it. You'd just say, let's factor this in, just like we factor in a million other things. I mean, the idea that climate change is going to be our biggest thing to adapt to in the next 50 years, when you think about just all the different technologies, when you think about, I mean, of course, we now see viruses, antibiotic resistance. I mean, there's so many, but even if you just look at societies that have rapid population increases or rapid changes in industry, or you need to move away, like, human beings are constantly adapting to a changing world. The idea that a very slow change in the average temperature of the world is going to be like a catastrophe, again, it makes no sense unless you just have a religious opposition to it and you're trying to make up this hellish narrative to scare people from violating your religion.
Okay, so how do you even talk to somebody like that? Because if you go, I compare the environment cult to Jehovah's Witnesses a lot, because they've routinely incorrectly predicted the end of the world. That's the only thing that's really similar. But I know a lot about religion. I've studied it for a very long time, and I don't think I could talk a Jehovah's Witness out of being Jehovah's Witness.
That's true. This is a great question. So I address this quite a bit in chapter 11 of the book. So there's a very real sense in which the green movement is a religion, but there's another sense in which it's not, in that people accept it largely because they think of it as scientific. So it's not at all scientific, but they think of it as scientific, and that's part of what you can dislodge. You can show that this makes no sense. And two things in particular, or three things I think.
So you're trying to pull the curtain back and show them Oz, basically.
Yeah, right? You're basically showing this is the set of ideas you're actually operating on, and it makes no sense. And so the three things I always focus on are, one is just pointing out that we're committing an obvious error in not looking at the benefits of fossil fuels and only looking at the negative side effects. And I think you can show that really clearly. Like, we talk about agriculture and climate change, but we don't talk about the benefits of fossil fuels. Right. For agriculture. You can show, one is that makes no sense, that we are ignoring the benefits. And then number two, you can point out that this whole view of what I call the delicate nurturer view of the world, that Earth is this delicate nurturing balance that's stable, sufficient, and safe, and we ruin it. This is just not at all true of Earth.
No, Earth has killed a lot more of us than we've killed of it, for sure.
And the same thing is true of climate, right? Climate is not this delicate nurturing thing, and it's something that we need to master by impacting the world a lot. And it's if you show them, wait, you're operating on this view that this Earth is this delicate nurture, and that doesn't make any sense. And then the final thing is really talking about what are your values. When you're thinking about the world, is your goal to advance human flourishing in the world?
Right.
Or is it to eliminate human impact on the world?
Yeah.
And I think when you make those issues clear, most people will choose a pro-human way of thinking. And that's, I think, a lot of what I've accomplished, particularly in Fossil Future, is showing people how to think of this in a logical, pro-human way. And it's very hard to argue with. And if you look at the people who've attacked my book, none of them have touched that.
No, they don't talk about anything in the book. They say that you're a philosopher, not a scientist.
Well, as a philosopher,
that's the main fucking talking point.
The main thing is there's that. There's paid by the Koch brothers, which is weird for so many reasons, including it's not true. Also, there's only one of the Koch brothers left, so it's disrespectful.
Alive, yeah.
It's just this. It's because I used to work at a place, the Ayn Rand Institute, that had like a $10 million budget, and over a 10-year period, they supposedly got, I never knew, but $50,000 from these guys, and that allegedly affects me now. That I've had my own business for 11 years. So it's just, and part of what, and then the main other thing they do is they just straw man the book. So they write a review, and it's like, Epstein says we should never get off fossil fuels. Like, really? I'm world's biggest supporter of nuclear. I'm a supporter of freedom. But in particular, they don't engage the framework. They don't engage this idea as, hey, let's look at this in a pro-human way, the benefits and the side effects very carefully. And because if you do that, it's obvious that we should use more fossil fuels.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go.
Did you change it to Epstein after Jeffrey?
I didn't, but I was very glad.
Yeah.
Actually, I have.
Because if it was Epstein, then you never would have heard the end of it.
It's funny because I'm visiting my best friend for my birthday in a few weeks, and we're staying in Palm Beach. So I'm very curious how that's going to go.
Oh, wow. Back where the magic began.
And my fiance looks younger than I do, so.
Woo. Grooming her?
What's that?
Totally kidding.
Absolutely not.
Totally kidding. I want to talk about this hit piece here that Slate wrote about you. Bob, if you could bring that up while I do the sponsors real quick, that'd be great.
Known for their
Slate.com wrote a hit piece about it. I'm sure you've
Slate hasn't been good
read
since
it.
Christopher Hitchin left.
You've read it, correct?
Yeah, I've read it.
Okay. I just want to put it up on screen because they went all in. They went all in on you here. We're not a big fan of Slate, so... we're on your side on this one, but
well, there are a couple of. There's a foreign policy one too, where they had it reviewed by 2 college student activists, which I found a little disrespectful.
We'll get to that in a second. Let me do the sponsors while Bob pulls this up because you got to see the headline of this article on screen. Okay. It's really fucking funny. First and foremost, ghostbed.com/drinking bros. We've been talking about climate change. Ghostbed has been ahead of it. They've got cooling technology in their mattresses and pillows. So if it's an extra degree warmer on Earth, guess who's combating that?
It's made of oil.
Yeah. The bet is?
I'm sure everything is made of oil.
I hope so. Well, I just hope people are using oil on it afterwards.
Oil.
Boom, right there.
Yep.
Throw some oil on your body, on your loved ones. Hop on a Ghost Bed mattress and make sex tonight. Do it. Just make all the sex you possibly can. 30% off with the promo code Drinkin' Bros. Pillows, sheets, mattresses, adjustable bases. Whatever your heart desires, you can put it in the cart and get 30% off with the promo code Drinkin' Bros. Now, if you want 40% off, you got to get the bundle package. The bundle package is the adjustable base and the mattress combined together for one fun-fueled evening. I'm going to keep it punny.
That's good.
Fun-fueled evening of real hard sex. You can get that up in book mode, TV mode, you name it. Does it make you uncomfortable when I talk about sex, Alex?
No, I'm very excited that you guys talk about sex. I think it's good for like a right-wing type show to be pro-sex. That's not as common as it needs to be, in my view.
I'm not right-wing.
He's not. I am.
Okay. Anything right of center. I think there needs to be more embrace of sex.
Yeah, I'm not all the way in, by the way. I'm not all the way right, where it's just
these are false categories.
There's always a couple issues.
These are very false categories, but I'm just saying, like, I'm very pro-sex, so it's good to see that.
Good.
Anything right of Mao, I think, is appropriate to say.
Yeah, I think it's fine. And if you want 50% off, they got the 3D Matrix mattress. Lawrence Fishburne's going to deliver it to your house, they said. So if he doesn't, call Ghostbed and say, hey, he didn't show up at my house. Bring out Larry Fishburne. Damn it! At the bottom of the screen, you'll see a 60-month pay-as-you-go program. So all the deals I mentioned are good with that. You can walk out of there with a brand new bedroom set for about $25 a month. Go to ghostbed.com/Drinkin' Bros. Today, next up, we got hardafseltzer.com. No carbs, no sugars, no gluten, Alex.
No oil.
Is this yours?
Yes,
Yeah.
That's ours.
Wow, I'm very curious about how this business is going.
It's right there.
It's destroying. But that's the problem, because now we're stuck. What I was saying earlier about being stuck in these fucking meetings for like Series A raises and all that shit, like
that's awesome. You're doing Series A raises.
It sucks, dude. It sucks. I hate
It sucks. It's better than not being able to get the Series A.
It's true, but I mean, it's it's endless, and you're just regurgitating the same numbers over and over and over again.
There's a real art. I'm going to write a book. I have a book plan called Relaxed Productivity. I mean, there's a real art to thinking about how once you become successful, how to structure your work so that it's as pleasurable as possible. And it's not obvious because a lot of times people do stuff they like, and it gets them into things they don't like.
Yeah, like Hunter Biden, for example.
Yeah, he's going to be a
no
heroic
yellow,
example.
no yellow,
dude. No yellow. That's important. If you could do these meetings for us, we'll give you a percentage of the company just to get the fundraising in, and we can walk away with it. The best part is it tastes amazing, and it gets you super fucked up.
Is it available in Southern California?
Yeah, well, it'll ship right to your house. So you can just go online, go to hardafseltzer.com. I appreciate that segue. And it'll ship right to your house in California.
Awesome.
We are live all across Tennessee. We are in 46 stores now in Tennessee. Florida is up next. But every dollar you spend online, getting it shipped to your house, goes right back in, and it'll go to the States. So we're live in 2-ish states right now. Go to hardafseltzer.com today. 8% right to the dome. We'll give you a couple to take to jiu-jitsu tonight.
Yeah, I'll see. I'll try to smuggle them in.
You should. And then last but not least, we got the store, drinkinbros.com/store. All of your faves are in there. All these hats. We got... I mean, look at these.
Jared's Bro Box, actually, you have until the 17th to buy that one.
Okay, cool.
So there's a lot of weird shit in it. So
yeah, yours was great. It's been a blast. The Bro Box, sign up. It goes right to your doorstep. This really helps the company as well, and we're super amped about it. We've always got brand new hats, T-shirts. Everything is in the store.
And don't forget about that.
Tons of fun.
Don't forget about that Butt Pilot shirt too.
Yeah, the Butt Pilot shirt is really important.
Still not sure what it means.
Yeah,
I've got a team of guys working on it.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
We're working on it.
It's like one aircraft engineer and then proctologist.
Yeah,
we're working on it right now.
And a guy from Provo, Utah. It's an old Chevy Chase throwback to Fletch. What do we got there, Bob, as far as the Slate article? Can you pull that up on screen? Now, this is fun. This is about you. You probably
they
woke
put my
up.
cover there.
They did. That's what I was like, dude, hey, they used the book.
Seems to be getting swamped by an ocean. But
this new style of
fire.
climate denial will make you wish the bad old days were back. The bizarre claim that what we need right now is more fossil fuels. Now, when you see this author's name, Nitish Bawa, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm pretty fluent in Indian. I'm assuming that's an Indian name, so I probably nailed it.
Yeah.
But when you see this, do you go to Twitter and hit them up immediately?
What do you mean hit them up?
Like the authors themselves. Like if I read a shitty article that I'm not a fan of, I'll often just go to the author and be like, why the fuck did you write this?
No, so what I do is I mean the first thing I do is read it and I see is this right about anything? Like do they get so for example, there's a guy that I've kind of debated twice and I believe beaten twice who was on Joe Rogan named Andrew Dessler. So he was he one thing and so I think he hasn't answered any of my real arguments, but he's at this point pointed out two factual errors that I made in the book. And in both cases, I'm like, oh, thanks for doing that. I'm going to correct that in the next printing. So the first thing is, like, if somebody criticizes me,
was he correct? Was he right?
He was right about those two factual errors that had nothing to do with.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, they were. Yeah. I mean, I could go into them. They're very, very tiny things. They don't affect the argument of the book. But in any case, I want to fix any inaccuracy. So the first thing is I read this and I see, did they point out anything legitimate? And part of that is, did they actually address my argument? Right? It's supposed to be a book review, which implies that you read the book and you can actually recapitulate it. And this article, I don't even remember this specific one very well, but it had nothing resembling a portrayal of my actual view. So then I think, how much time do I want to spend on it? And basically what I've decided is at some point after all the reviews come in, I'm just going to do a long podcast with my researcher and we'll sort of go through all of them. But all of them so far have been basically the straw man fallacy.
Okay.
So they don't actually summarize my argument and address it. They just make a bunch of random points, usually caricaturing mine. And so you have no idea what the book actually says.
Like the buy or the sub header on that.
Yeah, put that back up, Bob.
The subheader on that is just like, oh, he's saying we need more fossil fuels.
Yeah, I mean that's on the cover. I do say it on the cover.
But I mean that's like, it's reductive, I guess, and it's reductive. They took that specific point and made it reductively because that's the one that's most widely held by everybody, like you said before, which is that we need less fossil fuels.
Yes, it's not really an argument. It's just saying, well, of course we all agree that we should use less fossil fuels. And my point is, yeah, the reason I wrote the book is because too many of you agree with this. But then if you say, look, this guy wrote a book that disagrees with all of us, yeah, that's why I wrote it.
Have you seen Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back?
No, I haven't.
So at the end, they're making a movie, and then somebody makes a movie about, tries to make a movie about them. They get back involved. Long story short, they make the movie. Then they see some people being critical about the movie online, right? Specifically about their two characters. So what they do is they use all the money they made from the movie to fly to these people's homes and slap the shit out of them.
Yeah. I think it's good. Jamie Kennedy actually did a documentary called Heckler. You know what I'm talking about, Giorgio, where he actually went to hecklers, their houses.
Oh, that's weird.
After they were heckling him on stage, and he was like, I don't know, what didn't you like about the jokes?
So basically what I did here is I just thought these were so poor. I just wrote a couple of tweets about them, but basically saying these didn't actually review my book. Because like if they don't actually review the book, then there's not, if you go into every little thing, it's just sort of allowing them to distort your book. If it had become really prominent, I would have addressed it. So did you guys hear about this Washington Post thing where they tried to cancel me?
Yeah. And look, these guys are clearly trying to. Did you read the red underline in this one?
Well, I read the whole thing, but it has been a
Well, this one's fun because it says if you oppose this irrefutable fact, you're a genocidal, racist, anti-human, and anti-science fool.
Wait, were they saying I'm saying that of people, or they're saying that of me?
They're saying that you're saying that of people.
That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but I think it probably apply to them. That they're what were all those things?
Genocidal, racist, anti-human, and anti-science.
I think that the author is all of those things.
Yeah, certainly. Like think about
For sure.
So here in 65% white America, it's cool that we can fucking make some kind of play towards renewables while we fuck over at least 40% of the country or the world immediately. 40% of the brown side of the world, right?
That's why you got genocidal, racist,
like,
anti-human,
fuck off,
and it's not scientific.
And
so
it's a dude from India saying that. Like, do you know what the fuck is going on in the country you came from, motherfucker? Like, this, I don't understand these arguments. They don't make any sense.
So the other thing is, it's kind of a gift that people are actually engaging with me, because I wrote this book, The Moral Case for Fossil Fuels, that was one of the best-selling energy books. It hit the New York Times bestseller list, but the mainstream people just ignored it. Like, they want to attack all the people with bad arguments, quote, on my side, but they didn't want to engage me at all. There's only one serious person at all who engaged me well after the book came out. It was in a law journal, and it was just a total straw man, and they let me refute it, and I was done. But the hardest thing is when people won't engage you. Now, I got well-known enough, including I do a lot of work in politics, and I have a lot bigger following now. They couldn't ignore it, so the Washington Post tried to do this thing to cancel the book by portraying me as a racist for being a lifelong individualist, so that was insane. But they prepared this article. They sent me an outline with quotes calling me a racist. And instead of giving them comments, I just made a preemptive public video refuting it for an hour. And they basically got disgraced. And they didn't print the article for a week. And then they ran something with basically all the racism not mentioned. And so it was a huge win for me. But it also showed that people are afraid. And in particular, they were trying to criticize me for the argument you're making, which is that it's wrong to tell poor people they can't use fossil fuels. And so their argument was Alex is a racist, therefore his argument that poor people are hurt by this is wrong because he doesn't really care about this, which is false because I'm an individualist, and also false because even if I was a racist, that argument would still be totally true. And you would be terrible for hurting those poor people, even if you didn't consider yourself a racist. But it's great that people are engaging it. The other thing is I've gotten so many people who love the book, and that's what really matters. Like, the book is some idiot writing in Slate for a piece that they commissioned to attack me. That's not very significant. What is significant is all these new people, from all different, from the finance world, even from the MMA and jiu-jitsu world now, people are getting real into it. Like, that's the drinking bros world now we're expanding into. So,
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's awesome. And so my view is, I'm very arrogant about this. I mean, I think it's the best energy book in the world. I spent 15 years on this issue, 3 years on this book. And my strategy was write the best, clearest book that no one can refute, to my knowledge, and then just share it with people. And that's what I'm doing. And nobody has come close to trying to refute it, even
No,
trying.
Look, it's amazing, and I love the confidence. And I think we need more authors who talk like fucking NBA players, like for real. I think it's great. I'm actually not joking when I say that.
I'm laughing because
great.
my motive. When I decided to become a philosopher, I later decided to become an energy expert. I didn't want to go to academia. I had a degree from Duke, but I didn't want a master's or PhD because I thought they were mostly kind of moronic in terms of modern philosophy. And my idol was Kobe Bryant because he was a year older, and he went straight to the NBA, right? He didn't go to college to get a credential. He did the thing that got him best. And I really thought, like, look, I'm going to be the Kobe Bryant of philosophy. I'm going to actually go in the real world and learn how to think clearly and convince people, and I'm going to get good as quickly as possible. And then the credentials won't matter. And so you see now, what are people saying? Oh, you're just a philosopher. Oh, you don't have a PhD. Like, that's their best argument because I'm clearly on a different level than they are in terms of my actual knowledge and argument. So I think I believe it's the right strategy, particularly in today's world, to just become the best. And then people can't deny it. Just like I'm watching this jiu-jitsu match tonight with this guy, Gordon Ryan. He's right now is the best. And in jiu-jitsu, you get to fight. So it's really easy. Now, in my field, you get to debate, but fewer and fewer people are willing to debate.
Right. And then other people will point out what could be wrong, might be wrong, everything else. Tonight's thing, there will be a winner and a fucking loser. There is no in between. And that's what's probably more satisfying for somebody like you.
Yes.
Because you probably feel like you're winning every single day in real life.
Yes.
But nobody will declare you the winner.
Well, many people will. The readers will. No, many people will. The readers.
People's champ.
But what we need in a debate, as I've offered this, Joe Rogan suggested this and I volunteered, is what you really need is like something like a no time limit debate or 3 or 4 hours. Because otherwise people just get saved by the bell after an hour or something like that. And that's what I've offered. Like, let's do a 4-hour debate where we can check references live as long as you want, because nobody can answer. The point is,
well, who would be your dream to go against if you were going 4 hours and let's say Rogan was the moderator?
Well, kind of the dream is Elon Musk for sentimental reasons, but he's actually converted more toward my position. I'm not saying I influenced him, but he's been less of a climate catastrophist and more pro-fossil fuels in the last couple of years. Andrew Dessler is not a bad one. I mean, Al Gore would kind of be the ideal.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's the...
But he's such a fucking hypocrite. Like, you could pull up his house, his beach house, everything that he said. Remember, the ocean was going to be gone.
I would agree.
He bought a huge beach house.
I don't like hypocrisy arguments anyway. So I would agree to leave those out.
What about man, bear, pig?
Would I agree to not mention that?
I mean, no. According to South Park, he was right about that.
Yeah, and
because Man Bear Pig did come back.
He did invent the internet.
Season 16, maybe.
Al Gore did create. I
would not mention the expression "invent the internet." I would agree to all of these stipulations as long as we got to.
That's the one
talk about it.
He gets heat for that just doesn't make any sense. Like, he was referring to the royal we, like America, DARPA invented the internet, not Al Gore invented the internet.
Right.
That's like, there's a lot of reasons to be critical of that dude. That's not that one.
Neil deGrasse Tyson is one. So
he's been on the show.
He has.
Oh yeah.
He's interesting. So you need somebody. I mean, you need somebody who thinks it's going to go well for them.
And got it. So you can take their legs out.
Well, they need to agree to do it, and that's hard to get them to do. And usually, the people who agree to do it are a little bit delusional.
Well, I think I know why. Do you know why?
Why they agree to do it?
No, why they wouldn't agree to do it.
Oh, I know why. Of course, I know why they wouldn't agree to do it.
I mean, when you get to, let's say, Neil deGrasse Tyson, for example, right? He is this beloved figure, and any sort of challenge against him at this point, if somebody were to come in and steamroll him like you, right? Then it would knock him down a peg, and everybody would be like, "Oh man, but that was my hero. That was the guy."
Right?
Why risk it at that point?
Yeah, you shouldn't.
It's kind of like a great boxer later on in their career. It's like, do I really want to go up against the top ranked guy?
What about Bill Nye? He's done debates.
Yeah,
before.
he would be a good one. Yeah, no, I mean, he's turned it down. A lot of these guys.
Oh, Bill Nye has? No shit. That's funny. What do you politically? Where do you lean? And I guess, how do you embrace everybody saying the far right loves you?
Oh, do they say that?
A lot. And it's in 5 articles. I'm just on your first Google search here.
Well, so I mean, I think
far right darling. Somebody called you.
My usual expression, which my fiance loves as well, and we have the same beliefs on this, is like I say I'm too pro freedom to be a Republican.
Okay.
So that's my issue with Republicans, is they're not nearly pro freedom enough.
You weren't a big
And so,
fan
I mean,
of the Patriot Act, or
what's
what?
that? Well, that's a kind of complicated thing. But libertarianism also I have issues with, because it often is just hostility toward government as such. And I think government is a great achievement. It just needs to be very limited in its functions. So I'm like very pro a strong national defense, but it has to be very focused on America's interests, not just turning Iraq into a democracy or something like that.
That
to
worked.
take a hypothetical.
I mean, look, it worked. Okay.
Yeah.
It worked really well.
So yeah, I mean, I'm hugely influenced by the philosopher Ayn Rand. Have you ever heard of her?
Yeah.
Fountainhead and Atlas
Of course.
Shrugged. And yeah, and so that I basically got my political philosophy from her. So very individual rights based. And so what I find is on this issue, I align with a lot of people that I might disagree with on other issues. For instance, like I'm not a religious person, but I align with many religious people on this issue because most of them agree that you should prioritize human life and you should not sacrifice it to the idea of an unimpacted planet. And so in that respect, like their religious views are much more rational than the modern pseudoscientific environmental views. And, there are a lot of people on the left who actually agree with me, like people who, the old left, used to believe in industry and impacting the earth and factories and stuff. And the new left became against that. But there are still people who consider themselves socialists who think climate catastrophe is crazy and who think fossil fuels are great. So I have a lot of views, but I'm monomaniacally focused on this issue because I really am trying to convert the world on like the hardest issue. And so that's a full-time job.
Yeah, because look, I'm just, again, going through the media here, and the articles that love you you would describe them as far-right publications.
Kind of a coincidence, though, right? Because the only reason they care about him is because of the single issue that they happen to be on the same side of.
Right, and isn't that frustrating?
But I would say the vast majority of them can't explain why you're right.
I depend. I don't know. We'd have to look at the different sources, but I find that some of the reviews are really thoughtful, but also just some of the comments. I mean, one great thing about Twitter is you get to see what thousands and thousands of people think of things, and Instagram, and just, for me, the best things are the people who message me and say, I just got one, a few minutes before the show, like, you totally changed the way I think about climate. And it's just like an individual. Listen to me on the show, Modern Wisdom, with Chris Williamson, who's also
He's
in
a buddy
Austin.
of ours, yeah.
Oh, yes, he's been on the show numerous times.
He's actually the guy who I think got you guys introduced to me through Ari.
Yeah, we love Chris. He's fantastic.
He's awesome. He actually moderated my discussion with Peter Thiel to launch the book that I was.
No shit. Sweet. Okay.
Yeah, I was on his show for a second time, and I just got this note, and it's like I'm really just trying to change individual people's minds. So whatever level they're at, the thing I look for is their mind actually being affected versus they're just reflexively opposing it or reflexively agreeing with it because it's, here's another person on our team. But I never, like, I'm not a political guy in terms of, like, almost never talk about, like, Republicans good, Democrats bad. So even though people will ally with me, I don't feed into the tribalism at all myself.
Has any part of your research been about human psychology? Like, I know your background is in philosophy, so there's a lot of, like, philosophy is basically trying to understand human beings and understand our place in the world, right? Have you done any real in-depth research about how an idea forms in society and how it flourishes or becomes discredited?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's kind of, there's psychology, there's also intellectual history.
Sure,
so I'm interested in both of those.
Yeah.
So I think a lot about...
Because I wonder, just the way you're describing this, you are starting at the top of the funnel trying to talk to people who are ready to listen. But have you thought at all about how you create, like, firebrand people, I guess we would call them in marketing, but force multipliers, right? Like, how do I empower this reader now to go out and share this? Like, I know you do it on your website.
Yeah.
With bullet points, like, here's how you talk about this and stuff like that.
So, like, there's the website energytalkingpoints.com that's designed this way. So I would say I'm unusually strategic about this kind of thing. And one thing is, so I'm a couple examples. So one is, I think a lot about how do I create messages in ways that people will be able to use them. So one thing is energytalkingpoints.com, which I encourage everyone to check out and go on the mailing list. Every point on that website is the length of a tweet that you can share. Like, that's very deliberate, and everything you can share out of context. So any given one, you could just share that.
Self-sustaining.
And it would be,
idea.
but yet they all add up. So that's one kind of thing. Another thing is, I'm very obsessed with thoughtful people who are influential, which is why I'm here, right? Is that you guys have influence. And what did I do? Like, I asked you guys very strongly, please read the book in advance. And most shows, I'll just say, like, I'm not going on unless you read the book.
Yeah.
And the reason is because I know that a lot of shows, they just want to, like, it's understandable. I even haven't always read all the books that people have been on my show. Like, you want to just have a good guest, and maybe you can just have a list of questions. But what I'm trying to do is, I know that for every 10 thoughtful people who read my book, 3 will really like it, and they'll take it with them. And I'm trying to, so I'm obsessed with finding influential people. And then I'm also obsessed with taking like the 50 best people on my side right now and then teaching them what I know about how to be persuasive. So I do a lot of stuff behind the scenes that people don't see, but it's all about how do you actually, like, society is heading in this terrible direction and everyone thinks it's good. Yeah. How do you change that? The other ally we have is reality, because what everyone thought was right has now caused an obvious energy crisis. And so right now, people are more open than ever to an alternative, which is, you look at that Slate article, that headline should have been written a year ago when it was plausible. Now the whole world wants more fossil fuels. It's not just me.
Because that's what
Biden wants them.
That's what's been happening recently, is that but before this current energy crisis, the people who have been doomsday apocalyptic environmentalists over the last 30 or 40 years have routinely, since about 2005, said, we weren't wrong, our time scale was just a little messed up.
That's what they said for over 50 years.
That's why I always compare them to Jehovah's Witnesses, because it's the exact same fucking thing. But now an actual problem has occurred. It's not the absence of the problem they predicted, it's like an actual crisis, right? Which is, it gives you the opportunity to be like, here's what they said, and you are living in the fucking reality now, right? Like, use your eyes and ears and brain and understand what's happening to you. I think it's easier to convince people of shit.
Yes, it's like these people who predicted this imaginary climate crisis that justified these terrible policies have created a real energy crisis. And this is like, a real crisis is not you hear that it's hotter than it was since 1820. A real crisis is farmers are rebelling, right? A real crisis is people are having trouble eating. Europe is afraid of the winter. Like, just one of my favorite books, Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, 1957. It's got a section in there about the world in decline in 1957. And one of the characters is thinking about, we used to not worry about winter being a problem, but now it is. So this is 1957.
Right.
It wasn't a problem to be warm in the winter. Right. And we're in 2022. Yeah. And Europe, supposedly the intellectual leader of the world, is worried about keeping warm in the winter. If that shows you've got a bad philosophy, if that doesn't show you have a bad philosophy, I don't know what does.
Western culture has become exceptionally good at unsolving problems that we solved like 1,000 goddamn years ago.
That is a brilliant. I'm going to steal that. That's a brilliant statement.
Yeah, it's yours.
Unsolving problems.
Yeah, use it for good.
I will.
Like, do your work. This is fucking dumb. Why do we keep doing this? Like, the social and psychological stuff. Some of the psychological stuff is 19th and 20th century, but a lot of the social stuff, Greek dudes figured this shit out in robes 2,000 years ago, and we keep reinventing. Like Daily Stoic, he's a buddy of ours. He's huge.
Yeah.
But that should be like somebody starting an Instagram account about water being wet. You know what I mean? Like, we should already know this shit.
But people would rather die on a hill being wrong versus, trying to listen to other people's ideas.
Think so?
I really do, especially today. I wouldn't have said that probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago, but now with social media, and how much hatred there is every single day on it, I think people would rather die with one idea rather than actually have a conversation.
That's why I asked you about how an idea forms and how these things permeate through society. Because we used to live in a semi-polite, shame-based culture, right? Like, you were expected to do certain things, like be there for your family, go to work, blah, blah, blah. And if you didn't do those things, you were an asshole. And everybody agreed on that. And now it's like, if you believe something that other people think is objectionable, they'll fucking roast your ass for it. That's two totally separate ways that an idea forms, and then the social influence of how it gets, from one person's brain out into culture. It's so much different now.
I mean, maybe the point about dying is true for people where their whole identity is is based on an idea. So there's certain people, like I've gone to these climate protests and held up an I Love Fossil Fuel sign. And these people, a lot of them are just these, I can't think of a polite word for them, but they're these like lemmings or worse, where they're kind of soulless, and but this is their whole identity, is believing fossil fuels are evil. So you take that away from them, or let's say Al Gore. Like, if I'm right, then Al Gore, his whole life has been much worse than useless.
Well,
right?
Here's my honest opinion on Al Gore.
So why would he agree?
That should be the name of his biography, Much Worse Than Useless.
Exactly. Here's my opinion on Al Gore, and I firmly believe this. I think he saw the cash grab of going that way before everybody else did in climate change and was like, dude, this is a niche I could exploit, and I could definitely get rich off this, and people will donate millions and millions of dollars, and then I can buy a TV network like Al Jazeera one day, who was bought off of oil. Like, I genuinely believe that. It's almost like a televangelist or you know, Joel Osteen, where it was like, shit, if I go on TV and I have a church, I can give millions of dollars.
It happens anytime there's a cause of crisis that happens. Bad actors immediately flood to that opportunity. Like the PPP loans, like 80% of them were fucking fucked up.
Oh, yeah,
Are you kidding me? But it's military charities have done it over the years. Any kind, like BLM, any of these organizations that have a great cause, right? Immediately some corrupt asshole or assholes get involved and start doing that.
But Gore was the first, in my opinion. He was the first guy to really cash in on it. And go travel around the world in his private jet and do public speaking about it. And I just think...
Do you think he believes it?
I don't.
So I think they can go together. So I think you partially... So you think about someone like Al Gore, who's obviously status obsessed, I think much more than money obsessed. And particularly he wants power. I mean, that's clear. Like he ran for president at a very young age. He chose to do many times. I don't think people were encouraging him, like, you're world's most charismatic person. You've got to get in these debates. It's going to be amazing. I don't think that happened, right? So it's like he wants to be there himself. And then he also has a lot of anti-humanism, which I believe from reading his works. But that anti-humanism has the benefit of it justifies somebody having a massive amount of power. Because if CO2 is evil, we need somebody to control every machine on Earth, which means every industry on Earth. So he loves, that's a very intoxicating idea. And maybe one final thing about this is, like, I'm very focused on how do you, like, there are all these bad actors, but once you get rid of the bad ideas, the bad actors have nothing to cash in on. And for me, I think there's a turning point, which I think we're getting close to, which is, so far, the moral case for eliminating fossil fuels has had what I call a moral monopoly. So if you say, I'm against fossil fuels, I care about climate change, you just get a halo over your head, right? It's like a free status. What I'm trying to do is change that, not so that everyone disagrees with that, because that's too much to ask right now, but to at least have it be controversial so that people think, wait a second, if you get rid of fossil fuels, maybe you're harming billions of poor people, and maybe that's not good. And maybe there isn't a climate catastrophe. Maybe we can master climate like we've been doing for 100 years. And if you just create that doubt, if you make it a controversial issue, then all these freeloaders leave because they can no longer get free status. And then you actually have to debate. And once you debate, as I said, I think it's obvious who will win. But so like with Fossil Future, my main goal is break this monopoly, create enough people who have it. Question an analogy, which this is a really controversial analogy, but is abortion in the sense of abortion is an issue where people have strong moral beliefs on both sides. You don't just get a halo over your head by saying, I think abortion should be legal, or I think, like, you can't just go into a crowd. Like a corporation is not going to usually take a really proud position on abortion because there's not a moral monopoly. And what I want to do is create a situation where there's no moral monopoly, so we actually have to discuss this like human beings who are actually thinking about costs and benefits.
And then the facts matter.
And you can no longer get away with saying, hey, you're a climate change denier, and I'm a climate hero. Like that's gone. So then you actually have to say, hey, what are the benefits of fossil fuels? What are the side effects? What are the alternatives? And then I think it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Bill Gates and what he's trying to do?
Well, he's trying to do a lot of things.
Yeah.
Well, he just bought 2,400 more acres of farmland. That's probably an issue.
Yeah.
He's a really interesting guy in terms of motives. There's a lot I like about him, particularly earlier in his career. The thing I'll tell you.
You mean the dance they did when the Windows 98 came out? Is that what you're talking about? That was good.
And when the footage of him on Epstein Island was pretty cool too.
Oh, that's all right.
Yeah, of course I identify with that. The thing about Gates is, so I'll just focus on energy. He really knows better. He has this really embarrassing book, like How to Prevent a Climate Disaster, and it's not a serious book, including because all his stuff on climate is basically, I talked to some climate scientists and they convinced me there's a huge problem, and then it's, let's get off fossil fuels, which is like, really, that's your thing? It's a big problem, therefore we need to get rid of it on this timetable. And he knows how beneficial fossil fuels are. He's said publicly how inferior renewables are, what I call unreliables. And yet he has now been publicly boosting them, and he's been supporting every anti-fossil fuel policy publicly. And that's really embarrassing. So I get really mad when people know better and they say certain things for status. Like, you're Bill Gates, you have over $100 billion. You don't need to be saying anything for status. Like, part of being wealthy, one of the huge benefits of being wealthy and the responsibilities of being wealthy is you get to say the truth.
Yeah,
so
and
anyone who's wealthy who seeks status by saying false things, I have a
something
lot
going
of
on there,
hostility
yeah,
toward.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
And all the other purpose of wealth is to look down on the poor, is like you said.
Yeah, and that's what you
I'm
do.
pretty sure he
Yes.
said, can we
We're
roll
going to
that
just
tape
isolate.
out?
No, we're just going to get this clip. We're just going to get me turning red.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where are your seats tonight? Ringside? They're ringside, aren't they?
Unfortunately, they're not because you weren't allowed to. But to the next fight on August 7th, I'm going to. I got the expensive.
Where's that
seats.
fight?
It's in Dallas.
Oh,
All right.
what's August 7th?
August. What do you mean? What is?
Who's fighting?
It's Gordon Ryan. So
Oh, he's fighting again?
he's like a really. There's kind of, in my view, he's one of the top 2 guys in the history of jiu-jitsu in terms of, there's a guy, my idol, Rickson Gracie, who was undefeated. Not only undefeated, but in every match, he did not fail to submit the person. So in jiu-jitsu, like you often win by points.
Right.
He never failed to submit the person.
Yep.
That's great.
And it's just, and he fought MMA, fought everything. He's just an unbelievable, cool guy. And then Gordon hasn't quite done that, but in the modern era with far, far better competition, he calls his shot. And he's doing it supposedly tonight. If he does it tonight, it'll be unbelievable. But like he'll go against world level guys and he'll just put in an envelope. Here's the submission I'm going to use, like a triangle. Most world level people cannot submit another person in 30 minutes. He can choose the submission. It's hard to communicate how difficult that is.
Where
but
does the envelope go? To the referee or to the crowd?
to the announcers?
No, I think
it does.
I think Ed McMahon holds it, actually.
I think
R.I.P.
Yeah.
You'd have to put it in the grave.
so. He's kind of like I watch him and I just think I wish we could do this in my stuff because I really do feel like I could beat all these other people because my approach is so right. And in a sense, it's easier for me than him because at least he thinks his jiu-jitsu is better and it's hard to argue with him. But like, I'm just thinking about this in a rational, common sense way. And most people are thinking about it in an insane, anti-human way. So it's not that I'm like, Gordon Ryan is this amazing kind of genius at jiu-jitsu. I don't think of myself as the smartest guy in this field. I'm just the one thinking about it in a clear way. So I have an unfair advantage.
Okay. Before we get to the Drinkin' Bro of the week, what are you hoping happens tonight? What's your favorite submission? What do you want to see out of him?
Well, he said it'll be a submission that'll be shocking. I just
so he's going to snap
like
the guy's neck.
a fatality from Mortal Kombat. He's going to
great.
rip dude's spine out.
Guy goes full fucking quad. He's quadriplegic afterwards.
I guess what I'm just hoping. I really like the guy he's fighting against. Is actually on the same goes to the same chain of schools that I do. So, but I just love to see, dominant performances by superior people. So it's like this guy, Gordon Ryan, anytime anyone gets one move against him, he's mad about it.
Yeah.
So I'm just looking to see like an amazing technical performance.
Yeah, I love dominance too. You and I probably get along outside of this show more than we think.
Why would you think
Why
you
not?
wouldn't?
I don't know.
That's
I think
he's
we
been
would
closet judging.
No,
you
it's
this whole
not
time.
that. I think we would go to a nice restaurant and he would judge me from what I'm ordering.
Oh yeah,
And be
because
like,
you're going to
"Oh,
order a well-done steak, bitch.
100%.
Everybody should judge you for that.
He's going to be like, "You're a fucking poor, Ross. Like,
Well,
stop doing that."
That's more like white trash. It doesn't matter how rich you get. That's
Still,
not going away.
he's gonna look down on me. If we go
As
we
he-
go to Olive Garden, what's your first? What are you getting there,
We're not going to Olive Garden.
brother? That's what I'm talking about.
I know.
The breadsticks are endless. You can't beat that salad, and the dressing is
I don't eat
top-notch.
gluten.
That's right, you don't.
But I can also afford as many breadsticks as I want. You know what I mean? So endless. There's no value proposition. there for
Today,
me.
we don't know what's going to happen in the future.
When the economy collapses, I've still got guns. I'll go steal breadsticks from somebody. Right?
Okay. I mean, it's
There's
really,
not gonna
it's
be
the
a
real taste of
breadstick
Italy,
shortage for
but
me.
whatever. Now's the point in the show we get to the Drinkin' Bro of the week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Who'd you like to give the Drinkin' Bro of the week to?
Why don't we give it to Gordon Ryan since we've been talking about him?
Yeah. What if he loses tonight? Will that shatter your dreams?
No, but it'll be, when he lost, so he lost to another guy on my team, which is called Gracie Baja, a guy named Felipe Pena, who he's fighting on August 7th. Like, as soon as he lost, he posts, like, on Instagram, a picture of him getting strangled. So he's a good at losing, which I also appreciate. I try to do the same thing. Even if my enemies refute me, if they're right about something, I'll post, like, hey, I was wrong about this. No excuses. I'm going to change it.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta be good at winning and losing. So
Yeah, Tim Kennedy's like that too. He always posts his.
He's also
beat-up
trains
face.
with Gordon Ryan. Tim Kennedy,
Yeah.
that's an amazing.
Yeah, he's one
that's
of
an
our-
He's
amazing,
one of our good friends.
That's an
Very dear
amazing
friends.
guy.
Yeah,
I would love to meet him.
He's something.
Oh,
else.
really? Shit. He's over
Yeah,
here
next
all the
time you're in Austin,
I think he's
let's
in
get him
Ukraine
over
right
there.
now, right?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
He left, I think, the day after doing your show, right?
Can I give him a signed copy of this?
Yeah,
Can I give it to
Absolutely.
him?
Yeah,
Send one and I'll
he's
give
here
it
all the
to
time,
him.
yeah.
I mean, he had this amazing thing of he fought Roger Gracie, who's the other dominant modern jiu-jitsu guy, and he like dealt with his back control like no one had ever done. And actually, John Danaher, Gordon Ryan's coach, said he learned from, or at least Gordon said they learned from Tim Kennedy how to escape what's called the body triangle, which is the hardest position in jiu-jitsu. So the fact that this MMA fighter innovated how to escape the most difficult position, that alone is impressive, let alone his kind of heroic life besides that.
It's nuts. The dude's like the real life Captain America.
Yeah.
It's crazy. It's
Awesome,
crazy.
guys.
Dude, you were a fucking great guest. This was a blast today.
Thank you very much.
If you're out there, pick up the book Fossil Fuel by Alex.
Fossil Future.
Fossil Future by Alex Epstein. See, when it's facing camera, then I can't read it. You know what I'm
I
saying?
know, it's hard.
Yeah. Words are hard for me, okay? But we'd still be bros, I think, in real life.
100%. And I'm not I'm judgmental about Olive Garden, but not the well done steak.
Okay. Yeah.
Although
Well, it's not well done. It's medium.
I don't
well.
understand it, but
It's medium well.
Anything over medium rare is a fucking tragedy.
I understand that, but I don't trust people. I don't trust them. I think they're always one degree lower than we think they are.
Yeah, why would a professional
like
at something be good at it?
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe you're going to shitty places.
No.
Yeah,
not at all.
because like if you go to a steakhouse and they serve your steak at the wrong temperature, that's a big deal for them to fuck up like that.
Go to Sizzler, man. Tell me.
No, Sizzler is not our steakhouse.
Top notch.
No, it's
Top
not.
notch.
That's Applebee's with a different name.
We're in Texas. Have you been in Texas Roadhouse in Texas?
I haven't. No.
It's amazing.
No, it's
Great
not.
steak. It is
Their
the
meat-
best in Texas.
Like it's like subprime meat. It's not
real
even
good.
real. I don't even know if it's fucking steak.
Oh man, and the knives at Outback is another one that's got really great steak. You know it's a great steak when you need a bigger knife, and that's important.
Outback and Olive Garden.
Yeah.
Well-
Are you in?
We'll go some other places.
All right. What's your jam?
I don't know. We'll figure something out. We'll look at Yelp.
For the knife sizes.
I think
to
we
see,
should do a full Patreon episode where it's just me and him, and I take him to my favorite restaurants, and I go to his.
Oh
you
boy!
know?
Well, his will be nice. And
You'll be drinking a Wallaby Darned by 5 p.m., hombre.
All right. Sounds good.
I don't think they let cameras into the places that he goes to, though. Yours, they don't give a shit.
No, although Dan and I got super fucking trashed after an NFL game, and then we went to that 5-star Michelin restaurant.
Yeah, it was fucking awesome.
It was. They hated us so much.
I love the idea of a 5-star Michelin restaurant.
It's
Is that what it
three.
is?
Two. Well, I think that one was a 2-star.
I think it's 3 is the max.
Yeah, 3
Is it really?
Yeah.
That's what I heard. That's what I saw in the sushi movie.
3's the max.
Is it?
Yeah.
Whatever. We went there, and we were fucking loaded. I mean, it was after. Was it the Jets game?
Yeah.
It was the Post Malone thing. Yeah, we went after that, and we walk in there completely trashed. We've got hats on and shit, and people are going to this like taking it super seriously. We were not.
Well, I was taking the food series. It was
We were
really
not.
good.
I was taking the food seriously, but I think we were doing shots at the table, which was frowned upon. We learned. But come with us next time.
Awesome, guys. Yeah, I'm in Austin a lot, so we'll do it.
Perfect. We appreciate being here. Fossil Future is the book. It is out now. Great guest. This was really enjoyable.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for being here. For D'Anthony Holloway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros podcast. Good night, everyone.